G'day battlers, and today we are going to be jumping in to talk about the brand new Silph Arena Factions battlefields for the first ever Silph Arena official Factions season. Before we get into that though, there are two things I want to mention at the start of the video. If we're going to jump straight into the discussion about Factions, that timestamp is going to be right there. Also, the timestamps are all going to be in the progress bar down below, so you can skip right there in there. The first thing I wanted to mention is that I do sound different in this video, and that is because I'm using a different microphone, and that is because my microphone was stolen a few days ago. Not the best of situations. Hopefully it resolves itself soon, but in the meantime, Zoe and her just infinite generosity decided to drop off her spare microphone. So we can keep doing this in the meantime, and I seriously do appreciate it an incredible amount. It was kinder than she had to be. She reached out, she stopped off and dropped off, and I really appreciate it. So, because she needs it as the small time Pokemon Go YouTuber that she is, Zoe 2 Dots, link is going to be in the description below, but seriously, she's the best. The other thing that I wanted to mention was that the winning runs of the 4 Continental champions for the Silph Arena have been uploaded to this channel over the past few days. I'll link to the playlist up there that you can watch the whole thing there, but enough of that said, let's jump into Factions. Now, first, if you have no idea what Factions is, I recommend you watch that video first so you can kind of get an idea about what is actually going on, and then you can come back here, get an idea about what these battlefield metas are. Now, in previous pre-seasons, you actually had 4 field specialists all playing in the one single battlefield meta. This time it is a little bit differently. You're going to have 2 field specialists playing in the Dungeon Field meta, and 2 field specialists playing in the Nightfall Cup meta. Now, Nightfall Cup, super, we've played it again and again. We played it last month alone in the Wildcard Qualifier tournament, so I still have a meta simplified infographic. You can click up there to watch that. It's pretty much the same, it hasn't changed too much, and especially because they actually have banned Lickitung. I'm pretty sure I didn't include Lickitung in any of my Nightfall Cup coverage because it was inaccessible at the time, and now it's been banned anyway, so watch that. I've also got a full 20 something videos of Nightfall Cup coverage, so if you want to watch that, full playlist is going to be up there as well, so you can watch, as much Nightfall Cup as you would like. I was doing daily videos at the time. Now, the brand new field meta is the Dungeon Field. So we've got the restrictions right here. We've got bug types, dragon types, steel types, poison, water, and then bans on Megas, Shadow, Azumarill, Galarian, Stunfisk, Skarmory, Altaria, and Bastiodon. So let's just jump straight into the meta simplified, see what's kind of good, see what sort of matchups we can expect, and yeah, let's jump into it. Hope you got the screenshot. Okay, but we've got 6 groups on the graphic here. Also, very nice badge, by the way. But we've got 6 groups. First, in the top left, we have the sort of bug fighter sort of role. They happen to all be bugs, and Beedrill kind of works as a pseudo counter user. We'll talk about that in a bit, though. In the top middle, we have the sort of water. We've got Jellicent, Pelipper, Mantine. In the top right, directly below me, we've got Ferrothorn and Venusaur. In the bottom left, we've got the steel types with Steelix, Probopass, and Registeel. Bottom middle, we've got the Mud Boys with a Politoed as their just as support. It doesn't have the ground typing, but it's an honorary Mud Boy here. And then last but not least, in the bottom right, we have the electric types, that Lantern, Galvantula, and Magnezone. So this is kind of hitting on most of the types in the cup here. We'll start off with the bug types just straight away. A lot of this is actually relatively straightforward, and obviously there are some other picks that don't quite fit into this infographic, but again, we will talk about all of that as we go. Let's start off with the bug types though. We've got Beedrill, Escavalier, and Heracross. Both Escavalier and Heracross are going to be running counter, so you can understand they're going to be really good up against those steel types in the bottom. Beedrill also going to have Drill Run, so it can do some nice damage up against those as well. They're also generally going to do pretty well up against the Mud Boys in the bottom middle. Beedrill isn't as great against the Mud Boys as the other 2 counter users are, but generally, this infographic is supposed to give you a sort of general idea about what the matchups are going to be, so you can kind of understand it a little bit better, and then you can dive into it yourself, through PvPoke practice with your team, that sort of deal. So this is giving you a first look. So that arrow isn't 100% you're going to win all shield scenarios with these 3 against these 4, but just to give an idea. The other arrow going out of the bug fighters is over to the grass types. You can understand that they're bugs. They're generally doing pretty well up against the grass types. And then the arrows coming in is they are going to be losing to those Jellicent, Pelipper, Mantines generally, because Mantine is one of those Pokemon that has Bubble Beam. It's baits all the time. It can go well, it can go not as well. not necessarily always going to go that way, but something to keep in mind, generally they are going to be winning. And then there are no arrows between the bug fighters and the electric group, because it's a bit of a like really back and forth matchup. Like Beedrill has a good time if it can land drill runs through. The counter users can generally do okay, but like, you know, Galvantula's just kind of stomping on them a fair bit. So I just having to put an arrow there. It's a bit more into the nitty gritty. Onto the water types in the middle though, again, going to beat those bug fighter dudes, also going to be beating the steel types generally, and going to be beating the mud boys generally as well. Quagsire can fight back up against like Pelipper and Mantine with Stone Edge, but for the most part they are winning those matchups as well. Going to be losing to the grass types generally. That's a like really general one, because like Ferrothorn generally has Thunder, which is going to do like incredibly well up against all three. Venusaur is like going up against two sort of flyers here in this group, but it can still do really well. Frenzy Plant is a really broken move, so it can do a lot of damage and does win some shield matchups there, but keep in mind that it's not necessarily a Venusaur dominating spot. Then they're also going to be losing to the electric types, as you would expect. These are the water types that don't have that ground typing to resist it, and two of them have that flying typing to make it even worse. So yeah, keep that in mind. Move on to the grass types. Again, going to beat the water types, lose to the bug fighters, going to beat the mud boys as well, just more water types, but even worse, taking more damage from grass, and then also generally going to lose to the electric types as well. Generally, you know, like they are obviously going to do pretty well up against Lantern, but Lantern is sort of the exception there. Galvantula is going to do pretty well up against both grass types, although Ferrothorn can fight back in that one as well. We'll jump back over to the bottom right though, into the steel types, with that Steelix, Probopass, Registeel. These three do play out a little bit differently to each other. I mean, they're all sort of side grades. Like Steelix has that Earthquake, you can run Dragon Tail as the fast move. Probopass is more of that sort of RPS sort of Pokemon. Like it's very rock, paper, scissors, whether you go for like just getting in the right spot or getting in the wrong spot. Registeel, we've got Focus Blast, which again plays a little bit differently and does pretty well up against the other steel types as well. Gonna lose to the fighters, gonna lose to the water types, gonna lose to the mud boys. There's no arrow between the steels and the grass types, because again, it's a little bit back and forth. Venusaur generally does a bit better than Ferrothorn. Ferrothorn is gonna be like, you know, it's gonna take more damage from the counters, from the Focus Blast, from the Registeel, and then also I didn't mention these steels are generally going to beat the electric types. Again, Steelix has that Earthquake. I think it's Registeel that doesn't have as great a time up against the electric types, but generally the steels are going to be there with a bit of an anti-electric sort of role in there. Then there's the Mud Boys. We all kind of understand how the Mud Boys work at this point. They're pretty standard. They're very spammy. They're going to beat the steel types. They're going to beat the electric types because they have that mud to throw. Politoed, not as good because it is just pure water typing there. So Politoed is a bit of the exception. Then also going to lose to the counter users. Generally going to lose to the water types and going to very, very hard lose to those grass types. You can have two Mud Bobs on that Whiscash and Ferrothorn's still going to take you out with one Power Whip. Like, it's just Gonski. And then the last group on the infographic was the electric types, which is the group that has the fewest arrows. Actually, I think it's probably equal. There's still 4 arrows. There's only one group it doesn't have one with. Generally loses to the steel types, loses to the mud boys, except for that Politoed. Really, really good up against those water types, especially the water flyers. Like, if you've never seen a Pelipper up against like a Volt Switch Galvantula, well, I mean, no one's seen it for very long because it takes about half a second to go down. And then the other one is the electric types generally are going to be beating the grass types as well, as we mentioned before. But overall, that is the sort of general recap of this meta. Give you some ideas. There are some other Pokemon that are in this meta. So Nidoqueen and Golbat, the poison types. There's also Drapion, Skuntank. They're going to be around. I'm not sure how huge they're going to be. They're generally weak to the mud boys, weak to the counter users, usually with the bug types in some regards. The water types can do a lot of damage to some of them, like Nidoqueen. So like, they're definitely going to have a role and they're going to do pretty well. I think Nidoqueen is probably going to be the most used one. So maybe just keep in mind that poisons are going to be around as well. The other thing, there's things like Mawile with Firefang, going to do really well up against a lot of this meta. Going to do well up against steel types, do well up against grass types, do well up against the bug types, except it's also going to be taking counter damage back. So it's a bit of a super effective both ways sort of deal. And then going to not do that great up against water types. So definitely Mawile is one to look out for, is this sort of, I guess, core breaker here. And I'm sure there'll be more coverage coming out soon. I know NoFunPayneDunn. I'll link to his YouTube channel. I'm not sure if he's like officially part of My PvP Academia now and only makes content for them. I'll link to both channels. I'm sure NoFunPayneDunn is going to come out with something because he's an absolute legend in terms of building cores for just any format he looks at. So with that said, I think that's all I wanted to say. So thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, especially that subscribe one. Again, thank you to Zoe 2 Dots, because without her, this video would be sounding a lot worse. But thank you to my patrons and supporters over on Twitch. As always, they are, you know, superhuman people. They are just brilliant. Love these guys. And yeah, if you haven't already, the Continentals finals coverage, definitely worth the watch. They are some incredibly high caliber battles. Like, these are the Continental champions. Looking forward to how they're going to go in Worlds in a few weeks' time. We'll see what the coverage for that does look like. But yeah, I will see you in the next one. Thanks to everyone for being cool. And good luck in Factions Season 1.